The insult cut through the cold morning air, sharper than any bullet. At barely 18, Ethan stood on the edge of the Navy SEAL training range, boots dusted in gravel, breath fogging in the pre-dawn chill. The operators circled him with amused smirks, calling him an attachment, a joking reference to gear that gets clipped on and forgotten. He felt their eyes weighing him, stripping him of any dignity he had walked in with. A single thought flickered through his mind: I shouldn't be here. Yet something deeper whispered back, this is exactly why you are. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Ethan had spent years preparing for this one chance, not for applause, not for validation, but to prove to himself that he could step into the shadow of giants and still hold steady. His father, once a quiet legend in competitive long-range shooting, used to tell him that confidence wasn't noise, it was breath, discipline, and patience. But here, surrounded by men carved from grit and battle, Ethan felt every ounce of his youth. The range officer outlined the challenge, a brutal multi-distance gauntlet designed to expose even seasoned marksmen. Murmurs spread through the crowd like drifting smoke. He won't hit a single plate, one SEAL whispered. Another added, kid should have stayed home. Ethan pretended not to hear, but each word embedded itself like shrapnel. He looked down the line of steel targets stretching across the desert, some so far they shimmered like ghosts. His heart trembled. His hands nearly did. But then he remembered his father's final lesson before passing away. Fear isn't your enemy. Silence is. Step forward and let the world adjust. The SEALs fired first, moving like synchronized waves, rifles lifting in unison, bodies steady, expressions unreadable. Brass casings rained onto the gravel in a metallic rhythm. Ethan watched everything, the angle of their elbows, the timing of their breaths, the wind curling through the valley. He wasn't trying to copy them, he was trying to understand them. Then came the moment that pulled the ground from under him. The range officer approached quietly and said, "You don't need to shoot, you're just here to observe." Ethan's heart twisted with a moral weight he didn't expect. If he walked away, no one would blame him, but he would carry the shame forever. If he stepped forward, he risked humiliation on a scale he might never recover from. Was courage stubbornness, or was backing down a silent surrender? Ethan didn't answer. He stepped to the line. A hush fell over the range. The wind held its breath. Even the sun seemed to pause its climb. Ethan lowered himself to the prone position, feeling the earth steady him. His rifle felt cold, but familiar. The last gift from his father, polished by hours of practice and quiet grief. He lined up his shot. His pulse slowed. He exhaled. The first steel plate rang with a distant, satisfying echo. Several SEALs stopped mid. One muttered, "No way." Ethan fired again, and again. Each shot felt like reclaiming a piece of himself, calm, deliberate, unbroken. As the target stretched farther, the challenge sharpened. Crosswinds tugged at his aim, dust lifted in small spirals, sweat beaded at his brow, but his resolve held. The whispers changed. Mockery became disbelief. Disbelief became respect. When he reached the final target, a nearly impossible distance, several SEALs leaned forward, breath caught. Ethan adjusted for wind, for drop, for gravity itself. He closed his eyes for a single heartbeat, fired. The final plate sang like a distant bell. Silence, stillness, then applause. Not thunderous but genuine, rising in a wave that felt like redemption. The range officer stepped beside him and placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You're no attachment," he said quietly. "You're an asset." Ethan didn't smile. He simply breathed deeply, freely, knowing he had earned something far greater than praise. Because courage doesn't vanish, it rises the moment the world doubts it most. And somewhere in that dawn-lit desert, where dust glowed like sparks in the sun, Ethan finally stepped out of his father's shadow, and into his own. If this story moved you, drop a comment and subscribe for more powerful, true inspired stories. Your next favorite story is already on the way. Don't miss it.